Rev up your engines!
Thank goodness the world's coming to its sense with used car prices. Now the electric car prices, especially Tesla, the used prices are starting to fall like a stone. Now for the coronavirus years, stupid things were happening, like people would buy a Tesla, then they could sell it for 10, 20 grand more than they paid for it. A used car was going more than a new one because, well, you can't get the new one. We don't have any, but we got the used one, so you're going to pay a bunch of money for it, right? Now, the reality of Tesla is this. You go back like 5 years ago when I was living in Houston, I had a neighbor down the street, and he had a Tesla Model S. And the list price of that car was like $126,000, right? Well, the guy had just purchased it used with 15,000 miles on it. 126 grand, 15,000 miles. He bought that car for $45,000. So it was like about 1/3 of the original price. And that's what they were going for, used. This fantasy world, it's starting to crumble around, just like Elon's mind seems to be crumbling and doing crazy stuff. Now the prices of Tesla's fantasy is starting to crumble, and people are realizing, hey, why would I pay that kind of money for that thing? Believe you me, when those batteries go bad, $20,000, $30,000 to replace a battery, you're going to be wondering, why did I buy this thing? Finally, people are realizing the used prices are coming down. In the last month, they've dropped almost 10 grand, the used prices on these things. That's 10 grand that they've dropped from previous year. $10,000 less for the used ones. And believe you me, it's going to drop a lot more as time goes on, as people realize how these things are. I just read an article that 20% of the people in California that bought electric cars said they'll never buy another one, and they can't wait to get rid of theirs. And that's in California, where there are more chargers, where there isn't all that cold in most of the places in California, right? Up north, freezing cold, electric cars, they don't go together. So finally, people are wising up and paying less money for the stupid used Teslas. They're finally realizing, why would I pay all that money for this car? It's used. It's an electric car with unproven technology. Why spend the money? And people are finally starting to wise up. Plus, Tesla's stock dropped 50%. Well, watch out for dealership scams. An email from one of your viewers. He explains how he got out of it. Kevin says, I was at a Mazda in Kentucky looking to buy a 2013 Mazda with 59,000 miles. I was paying cash. I talked them down to $18,000. And then they said, well, we have a dealership fee of $500. I asked him what it was for, and he said $300 is for pulse braking. I said, okay, let's try it out. It works, but it didn't work, so I'm not paying for that, he said. What's the other $200 of the $500 for? They said it was for sketching the windows. I said, you already charged the first customer for it. I'm not going to pay again for that. So I got them to take that off. So don't let them take advantage of you. There's a lot of bogus charges that they put on. One of their favorites is, well, we put ceramic coating on the car, and that's an extra $800. Just a scam to get money out of your pocket. That's how all those places go. And like with the etching, guy already paid for it. I had another viewer send me one. They said they wanted $800 for etching the car. And they were going to etch it for him, right? And he said, I really don't care. If I was going to do it, for $25, I can get an etching kit on Amazon and do it myself. I'm not going to pay you $800 to do this. Don't let people sucker you into things. They're always trying to sell you stuff. And especially be leery of the extended warranties. They rarely cover what you want. And most of them are what are called 50%ers. Meaning if you pay $2 grand for an extended warranty, they're getting about $1,000 commission selling to you. So it's 50%. You're basically only buying a $1,000 insurance policy because $1,000 of it goes to them as a commission. So stay away from all that crap. Don't let people rip you off. Dwayne102 says, why won't my 99 Toyota RAV4 start up? I'm in Saskatchewan. Now, it won't start. It cranks, but it won't start. I think I'm supposed to hear the pump when you turn the ignition, but I don't hear any noise. Just 2 clicks from under the hood. Now, the engine turns over fine, but it won't start up. Help. All right, well, you want the simplest test on earth. Take your air filter out. Get a can of starting fluid. Have somebody crank the engine, spray a little. If it starts up and dies, there's lots of things that can theoretically do it. Bad fuel injectors, bad computer, bad wiring. But most of the time, it's just your fuel pump has died. It's the 99, eventually they wear out. So what you would do would be check the fuel pump fuse. If the fuel pump is good, then what you want to do is just take a fuel line off. It's cold there, so it's not that dangerous. Put the fuel line in a bucket. Crank it over. If it pumps a lot of fuel out, the pump's working, and it's something else. But if you turn it, nothing happens, no fuel pumps out, then you need a fuel pump. Odds are you need a fuel pump, because normally you'll hear a little in the back when you turn the key, and if you don't hear it now, odds are the fuel pump's gone bad. Now, realize, of course, you're going to hear noises more when it's cold, because when it's cold outside, sound travels better when it's colder. So, if you heard the in the summer, you're definitely going to hear it in the winter, unless the pump is broken. So, odds are it's the pump. So, do all those tests. U.S. Army Engineer Vet says, anyone have experience with advanced auto part crate engines? I was looking to buy one, but I want due diligence before I spend that kind of money. All right. Well, here's my experience and my customer's experience with crate engines from any discount auto parts stores. They're almost all bad. I would not buy a crate engine at a discount auto parts chain. Discount auto parts chains are just middlemen. They're a big corporation. They want to cut a deal to get them as cheap as possible. They're not going to do such a hot job because they're not getting paid the money they want. It's a very costly endeavor to do correctly. The only place I advise people to get engines from is either potluck from a junkyard, where maybe it's a low mileage wreck. If they could prove it could be a good engine, or professional rebuilders that know their stuff. Most people don't use professional rebuilders anymore. It costs too much money because the engines are so expensive. It can cost $5, $6, $7, $8 grand or more just to rebuild the engine correctly. And the crate engines they sell at auto parts stores, they're always lower price. And my customers that bought them, they almost all, to a man and woman, kicked themselves in the butt. They had problems, and then you're stuck because the auto parts store says, well, you have to deal with a company. We're just the middleman. And they'll say, oh, well, you didn't do it right. You send us the engine. We'll look at it. Yeah, you're going to pay to send them the engine, right? I stay away from those myself. You're often better off just trying to find a low mileage wreck one from a junkyard, putting a used one engine that's still got a lot of life left. A lot of times they're not worth anything. They just do it too cheaply. AJ says, got a question about F-150 cam phaser. My dad's looking at a 2010 F-150 with a 5.4. He wanted to go a little more modern. How do those hold up? Every F-150 with that Triton engine I've seen had that cam phaser sound. Why is that? It's just kind of a cheap design, and they often break. Now, many guys will get a cam phaser delete kit. It's not that hard to use. It comes with a wedge to keep the timing chain in, and then bolts. And so you make it so the cams don't move anymore in phase. They're stationary. They're in one place. Now, you lose a little bit of power that way. Then you don't have to worry about having to replace expensive cam phasers. It was just bad build, that's all. All the companies have variable valve timing. Toyota stuff usually works quite well, so do the Hondas, right? Ford just made cheap ones, and they had problems with them. That's just the way that it goes. If you want to fix it right, it costs thousands of dollars to replace all the stuff, because if you're doing that, you might as well take the chain and do all kinds of work while you're taking the engine apart, right? It's just because they make them cheaply. That's the problem. And I personally wouldn't buy one if it was making any noise, and I wouldn't pay much for a used one if it has that system, because eventually it will break. Almost every single one of them breaks eventually. Now, some of them make noise and run okay, but you want to really be driving something that's making noise, because if it's making noise, eventually it will physically break, come off. You might go years before it finally physically comes apart, but eventually it will. Jay Moreland, 222 says, Scotty, please help a crippled soul. Scotty, I'm looking at a 190,000 mile 2006 BMW X5. It's $4,500. I'm tired of walking with my cane. Is it worth it? The outside is clean. You say you walk with a cane, and you call yourself a crippled soul. Well, let me tell you something. Do not buy that BMW, or be even more crippled. Your cane will break, and you'll fall into the endless money pit of cars. BMW X5, especially 2006, is one of the biggest money pit cars ever built in the history of this planet. They are endless money pits. I had a friend who was a news anchor in Houston, Texas. He bought one. He got rid of it because he said, this is the worst car I ever got. I'm always having to spend a fortune getting the thing fixed. And the guy was making, multi-six-figure income. And he said it was a horrible car. Absolutely horrible. He got a Lexus after that, and he loved the Lexus. It was expensive too, but the Lexus at least didn't break down. Do not buy that BMW X5. You're going to really not be happy, Look for some kind of Toyota or Honda. They're much better made. Now, the reason it's $4,500 is because everybody knows BMWs are endless money pits. You can get used ones relatively cheap, but it's also got 190,000 miles. That really means it's ready for the money pit if it's not there yet. Now, if it would add 60,000 miles or something, maybe you could have gambled with it. With that kind of mileage, that's an endless money pit, and it will cripple you even more if you buy that thing. Believe me, stay away from that car. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.